Hello everybody, hope you guys are enjoying your day. Today we're going to be looking at a tornado outbreak, which is definitely possible over areas through the southeastern United States and the Gulf Coast, where you could see a moderate risk. We already have a moderate risk in place, and we have a 15% chance or greater of tornadoes in place for those regions. That's why I'm classifying this as a tornado outbreak, and this is going to be going on through today and tomorrow. Less so tomorrow, but definitely today we're going to be seeing a major tornado outbreak. I also made another video about this yesterday. So this is kind of an update video on yesterday's video, and we're gonna go a little bit more in depth on Monday's severe weather, which we went more in depth on today's severe weather yesterday, and today we're gonna be going over tomorrow's severe weather a little bit more in depth. Now let's start looking at your National Weather Service real quickly, and then we're gonna move to your Storm Prediction Center. We have a tornado watch through eastern Texas and western Louisiana, so definitely be cautious there. And I think this is gonna expand eastward to about Alabama or so, and then I think it's really going to start to cut off. But definitely, if you do live really anywhere within the southeastern region, be on high alert for some severe weather. We have flood watches in effect for Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, and South Carolina here, and then we also have a red flag warning in place for northern North Dakota and northern Montana. Now, something that's going to be very dangerous is going to be your flooding. Now, here's your flooding, or here's your total rainfall over the next 5 days from the Weather Prediction Center, and they're usually very accurate with their predictions. Now, they actually have in that red, anywhere in that lightest shade of red, you're seeing about a 3 to 4 inches, 4 to 5 inches in that slightly lighter color of red, and then we have a 5 to 7 inch region through a lot of Mississippi, Alabama, and Georgia, and even there through South Carolina, and then we even have a 7 to 10 inch region through Alabama and Georgia, and most of that is going to be just from today because the Weather Prediction Center they've had this large area of about 3+ inches of rainfall for the past few days. It was about 3 to 4 days of right now that they've had this large amount of rainfall on their Weather Prediction Center rainfall total map, and it's very dangerous if you do have a lot of this rainfall here. So it's going to be excessive rainfall, and definitely the threat of flooding is there. So definitely turn around, don't drown. Definitely something that's going to be very important here, and I just want to show that because I do think that is definitely a risk here of flooding. It's a very significant risk here. Now let's start looking at your Storm Prediction Center. We have a slight risk in the yellow, a enhanced risk in the orange, and a moderate risk, which has actually been expanded further to the east. Yesterday it was just touching Alabama, and today it's all the way through eastern Georgia there, where you have a moderate risk anywhere in that red, and that's where you really have to pay attention for some severe weather. Here's your tornado threat, and we have a 2% chance in the green, 5% chance in the brown, 10% chance in the yellow, and a 15% chance in that red, which is basically the same area that's in that moderate risk region. And we also have a significant hatch region for those areas, and that's where we have the potential of seeing EF2 to EF5 tornadoes throughout that region, which is definitely very dangerous. And actually, in last week's tornado outbreak, where they actually had a hatch region as well, we saw an EF3 and an EF4 tornado in all through Mississippi, I believe, and they were definitely very destructive. So that's why you have to really pay attention. If they put out that hatch region, that's where they're really expecting some pretty powerful tornadoes. Here's your wind threat. We have a 5% chance in the brown, a 15% chance in the yellow, a 30% chance in the red, and a 45% chance in the pink of seeing some wind damage. And we have a significant hatched region there through Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, and through Georgia, where we have a threat of seeing 65 knot winds or greater throughout that region. And 65 knots is equivalent to about 70 to 75 miles per hour, and that's really going to be with those squall lines that kind of move through. I think ahead of those squall lines, you're going to see some very gusty winds, and we'll actually look at that later on in the video. And here's your hail threat. We have a 5% chance in the brown, 15% chance in the yellow, and a 30% chance in that red. And we have a significant hatched region where we have the probability of seeing a 2-inch diameter hail or larger throughout that region. Now let's start looking at your day 2 outlook, which would be for Monday the 20th, or which would be tomorrow. Now we have a slight risk there for the immediate South Carolina and North Carolina coast. Now Now, if we look at your tornado threat, we have a 2% chance there in North Carolina, South Carolina, and Georgia, and a 5% chance kind of wrapped inside of there. Now, here's your hail threat. We'll have a 5% chance, or here's your wind threat. You have a 5% chance in the brown, 15% chance in the yellow, and we have a hatched region there where we see, again, the probability of seeing 65 knot or winds or greater, which is, again, around 70 to 75 miles per hour. And then here's your hail threat, 5% chance, so really nothing too major there with your hail. Now, let's start looking at your simulated radar from the NAM3 cam. Now, you're going to have a lead edge of some rainfall and thunderstorms, and as well as supercells developing ahead of this initial batch. And your more severe batch is actually out here through Texas and kind of off your screen. Now, we have this is again a very large, potent storm development through northern Mississippi and northern Alabama as well as northern Georgia. But this isn't going to be your main one. This isn't going to really hold too many tornadoes, or it definitely will have a bit of hail, but I don't think it's going to have too many tornadoes. Now, the one I think is going to have more tornadoes is actually going to be the one again that was off your screen. Now it's on your screen through Louisiana and Texas. That's the one that has that tornado watch in place. This is through Sunday, right over. Well, this would be today, right around 2 or 3 p.m. Central Time. And as we continue this, you start to see by tonight and now going through the evening hours, you're starting to see those thunderstorms really starting to pop off. You really have a lot of very high Cape values throughout this region, and because of that daylight heating, you are going to have some very, very strong thunderstorms that are going to be able to pop up. We had some very warm temperatures throughout this region. Temperatures are in the 70s and 80s, and even through Florida, we had a couple of 90s. So definitely some very warm conditions that are going to allow for some thunderstorms. And you see, we do actually have some squall lines developing. And squall lines are basically lines of very intense thunderstorms that ahead of them will have some very strong winds, and then they'll have that hail, the tornadoes, the heavy rain right along that squall line. And then behind it, drastically, your winds are going to start to shift, and they're also going to start to weaken gradually, but it's definitely going to be something very, very important to watch. Now, as that squall line starts to move through by about Monday, right around your early morning hours, and then by when you're waking up, that squall line redevelops over North and South Carolina, and then moving through Georgia. This isn't going to be as severe as the one throughout Alabama, Mississippi, and Louisiana, but it is still going to be something very significant. Definitely some flooding, flash flooding will be a possibility with the squall line as it continues to move eastward by Monday, right around your noon time. Now, here is your Cape values, and this is your convective available potential energy, and this is basically showing you how much energy you do have in the atmosphere. Now, we have, once you get above the 1,000 mark, that's where you can have some pretty good thunderstorms to develop, and we have sufficient Cape values. And yesterday I showed your Cape values, and they were very high. Most of your Cape has already been kind of eaten up by most of your thunderstorms out to the west. You still do have some Cape further to the south, but we had a lot of Cape this afternoon, or earlier this afternoon. So definitely, I think your Cape values, they're going to start to go down, but that doesn't mean that your thunderstorms are going to start to decrease. Your thunderstorms are actually just eating up all the Cape that's in the atmosphere, and they're going to be moving to the east, and they're going to also produce some pretty potent thunderstorms with all that Cape value that they do have available to them. You see, we have Cape values that are right around 2 to 3,000 in values, and they start to move further and further to the east, and you really see that ahead of the squall line. So the squall line is kind of moving along with this Cape, and you see behind the squall line, and your squall line is kind of like right around here. Right behind it, you have Cape values of around 0, but then as you get ahead of it, you have Cape values of 2 to 3,000. So definitely that squall line is going to be very, very strong, and it's going to be moving throughout the Carolinas and Georgia as we get around the noontime hours of tomorrow. Now, let's start looking at your Supercell Composite Index, and this is going to be showing you how likely it is to have a supercell develop. And usually you want above a 1. As you get above a 1, that means that there is the potential for some supercells to develop, and it also means that it's a very likely. Now, as you get really right around a 4 to about 7, that's where it's getting exceedingly likely. And then as you get above there, as you get 7 plus, that's where it's really, really starting to ramp up, and and you have some pretty good shots of seeing some supercells. And supercells are what develop, are the systems that develop into tornadoes that can have tornadoes with them. So I don't like to use the significant tornado parameter, which you've probably seen quite a bit before. I don't like to use that because it can be a little bit misleading, and it's hard to forecast a tornado from a modeling perspective and exactly where that's going to set up. So I think I really like the Supercell Composite parameter a little bit more than the significant tornado parameter, just because I think it's a little bit more accurate than the significant tornado parameter. You see, we do have some pretty high values there of about 12 to about 16 throughout that region. And as we continue, it starts to move further and further to the east with those very high SCP values there through southern Georgia and southern South Carolina, and also for pretty much the entire state of Florida. You have some very, very high or Supercell Composite index values there. And as we continue, they start to move further to the east. Really, all this shows is that you do have a very good shot of seeing some supercells to develop throughout this region. Now, let's finally look at your wind gusts from the NAM3 cam model. In this entire video, I was using the NAM3 cam model. It's fairly accurate at showing what type of thunderstorms we're going to see, so I like to use it, especially as we start to get into the severe weather season. Now, here's your wind gusts, and as you get, this is in miles per hour, so you don't have to do any conversions here. And you see, as we get into the yellows, that's about 35 plus miles per hour, and the oranges and the reds, that's about 50 plus miles per hour. And you're actually going to see a little bit of that where you had that 45% chance of wind damage. You actually see through southern Georgia, we actually have some very, very high wind gusts, and that's mainly ahead of that front. You can kind of see that squall line. You have very weak wind speeds as you get right along that front, and then behind it you have some weakened wind speeds. Ahead of it you have very, very strong wind speeds of about 35 to about 55 miles per hour, and it continues to move further and further to the east. Now, that is going to wrap it up for today's video. Please consider liking the video, subscribing, and turning on notifications so you never miss a video when I do upload. Anyways, guys, I'll see you guys in the next video. Goodbye.